Welcome to the Yeshiva Daf. We're holding now in Chulin Daf Yud Zayin. We in Shabbos we went a little bit ahead, but let's go back to the machlekes that we saw over here. There's a machlekes of Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva. What changed in Am Yisrael in the Midbar? Meaning, what changed in terms of eating meat? So we saw in the end of the Zayin Beis, the Gemara brought that Rabbi Shmuel learns. Maybe just to get into it, even just take us 2 minutes just to go. Let's start from the Tetzayin with base and the two dots. Even though we did this part, but it should not take more than 2-3 minutes just to get into it. The Gemara says, first of all, kol shoichatin, kol b'shchita, everything you do shchita, v'afilu oif. Even a bird needs shchita, even though it doesn't say fish in the Torah. Lo ilum shoichatim, you always do shchita. Mantana, who's talking that says you always do shchita? So one here brings two explanations. Explanation number one is Rabbi Shmuel. The Tanyo ki Yeshiva Shem Lekechas Pulchok Asher Diberloch. Famarta Ech Labosar. When you come to Eretz Yisrael, Hakadosh will expand your gvul, your border, and now you'll eat meat. So if there's some changes that the pasuk is referring to. What is the change? So Rabbi Shmuel learns. Rabbi Shmuel is to allow them to eat shech meat, not as a korban. The beginning, you could eat besar taiva, which means if I wanted to shech meat just for pleasure, you could do it. You could do only for a korban. What? Only korban is shlomim. You do shlomim. If now you can't check the animal, which is not a korban. Let's get back to the orders. Let's read the shechasula aretz. Once it went into the soil, who talem besar taiva. Now they went out of Eretz Yisrael. Can they go back to the original state? That's the chiddush of the Mishnah. You always do shchita. According to that, tell me, how do they do shchita? You do shchita and you're doing achila. The main chiddush is that you can eat. In addition, what's the reason you're not allowed to eat regular meat in the middle? Because we're all next to the Mishkan. So why just eat meat? Take an animal, bring it to Beis Hamikdash, the Mishkan, give it as a korban, and you eat the meat there. Well, but so my time when we went in there to Israel, it became motor. Now they're far away from the Mishkan. How can you eat meat if I have to bring to Beis Hamikdash? Now we even further when the Gears over here says to lay sekla. In other words, according to Rabbi Shmuel, when they were in the Midbar, you cannot eat stam meat, only meat of korbanos. There's no such thing as shech the regular meat. That was Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Akiva will say argues. So according to Rabbi Shmuel, the Gemara says maybe that's what the Mishnah is coming to tell you. You always do shechita, meaning you're allowed to do shechita. Don't tell me that only in Eretz Yisrael you can do shechita. No. Once they came into Eretz Yisrael, you always can do shechita. So the second question is, of course, what's the chiddush? What do you want to tell me that today I can't eat meat at all? Elo Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Akiva. Our Mishnah is Rabbi Akiva. So he brings this pasuk. This pasuk teaching you that you now let it bosach. What's supposed to nechir? Nechir means that you kill the animal without shchita. You just kill it, shoot it. It says also shebetchila u'talem b'sar nechira. Mishin chasula arit esalim b'sar nechira. In the midbar they can eat b'sar nechira. In Eretz Yisrael they can't. When they go to Golus, they'll go back. That's what we say you can always shake it. Meaning, Rabbi Akiva holds it's almost the exact opposite. According to Rabbi Shmuel, in the midbar, more Gadi. According to Rabbi Shmuel, in the midbar, you can eat. According to Rabbi Shmuel, shchita is not allowed in the midbar, only korbanos. According to Rabbi Akiva, not only that you're allowed to eat regular meat, you don't even have to do shchita in the midbar. When if you zayin udal, we're in the two dots right now. So not only that you can eat, you don't have to be korbanos, you can eat regular meat, you don't have to even shecht it. According to Rabbi Akiva, they just took an animal in the midbar and just killed it, and you can eat it. That's what Rabbi Akiva holds. So what's the machlekes? Now the two dots. That's what we got to the machlekes. B'ma'ika miflagei. What's the machlekes? Rabbi Akiva saw a side taiva lo yitzer klal. Because Rabbi Akiva, You can always eat meat. Rabbi Shmuel Sabar b'sar nechiru lo yishtari klal. According to Rabbi Shmuel, I never allowed b'sar nechiru. Meaning, according to Rabbi Kiva, what in the mid there is, everybody agrees that when they were in the 40 years in the midbar, there was something different than what happened after. What was it? According to Rabbi Shmuel, it was more stringent. It was more chomer. What was more chomer? That in the midbar, you cannot eat regular meat. When you make a steak, you can't do it. You have to bring a korban. According to Rabbi Kiva, it was more lenient. You can eat regular meat, you don't have to shecht it. Now, they both go on the same theme. And there's a nikud over here. That when you're in the midbar, you still didn't get to bring the Torah to fruition outside. You're right now under the auspices of Kodesh Baruch Hu. You're living with Hashem. So according to Rabbi Shmuel, if you're living with Hashem, you eat only korbanos. It's similar to what we find the Gabi Chometz Pesach. It says you're not allowed to Chometz Pesach because when you go on Mitzrayim, the first 7 days, you have to be very careful to eat only food that has no Yitzhar in it. Says the Zohar. So when they're in the midbar, they're like in the house of Hashem, they eat only korbanos, not beside taif. They get Eretz Yisrael, now they become like called regular people. Rabbi Kiva is from a different direction, the opposite. When they are in the midbar, it still didn't come to the avodah of doing shchita. As we'll see, we'll get to it more, a little bit more in the hemshech of the Gemara. When I get to Yisrael, now I have to start becoming more careful of what I'm eating, because until then I'm protected. I'm not yet out of the womb. Says now the Gemara, after we saw the Machlokes of Rabbi Shmuel, comes down the Gemara to explain the different the sort to come to explain all that we know according to both. Rabbi Shmuel, it says in the pasuk, "V'shachat is ben habokar." It says shchita. So the Gemara says, "What do you mean shchita?" According to Rabbi Shmuel, it was always shchita. And Rabbi Kiva, "Ma'ay v'shachat." Why shchita? You don't have to do shchita. According to Rabbi Kiva, during the years of the mitzvah, there was no shchita. It says in one kach shani. No. You don't have to do shchita for regular meat. You want to do your own barbecue. But to bring the Beis Hamikdash, always shchita was one of the 4 avodas. Rabbi Shmuel, what? The slav is different. The slav is the bird. Yeah. Did they do shchita of a slav? It's a different discussion. But right now we're talking about regular animals. Going back to the Slav story, Moshe told Moshe Rabbeinu, "I'm going to bring the meat." Moshe says, "What do you mean? If you shecht all the animals, it won't be enough." So you see, he said shchita. So according to Yeshua, that's what always was shchita. They just killed it. Says no, you're right. Meaning, what we call today shchita is then they call nechira. Nechira means just to kill the animals. Also called shchita. It's like we say today in English, slaughtering. So it means you killed it. How you killed it doesn't mean it with kosher shchita. And here there's a raya, many of the Rishonim bring, that even at the time the midbar according to Rabbi Kiva, you don't have to do shchita. You could just kill an animal, but they didn't eat treifa. Treifa means that it's sick. We have nevelas or treifa. It usually goes together. You would think if it's a nevela, meaning it wasn't shechted, you can eat. You can also treifa. No, the nevela, the killing, that's its shchita. According to Mishmah, we have a halacha. So we're going to see this later in the Masechta. If you have someone killed an animal, you don't have to do kisui adam. You don't have to cover the blood. Why not? Because that's not shchita. Only by shchita you have to cover the blood. Makes a lot of sense. According to Rabbi Kiva, and during the time of the midbar, killing an animal was shchita. And then you have to cover the blood. So why today you don't have to cover the blood? So the Gemara, a simple answer, we'll be itzer. Once it became us, it became us. In other words, once it became us, the nechir is not shchita at all. So there's no kisui adam over there. According to Akiva, you always be able to eat meat. It says in the pasuk, how do you eat? It tells you, when you have korbanos, how do you eat it? Tumo. It says, you know how you eat deer and chaya. I know the same way that you can eat this. What do you mean I can eat deer? Deer is not carbon. So you mean you shecht it. So according to Rabbi Shmuel, there was no such thing as meat which is not a carbon. Now eat. Yeah, chayas you can't bring as carbon. That's exactly the answer. An animal that could be a korban that you did bring to Beis Hamikdash, but an animal that cannot be a korban, you could eat. You could make a barbecue with deer meat. Okay, that's what it is. Okay, so now something more. So machlekes Yeshua, because really this is a very essential, important machlekes. According to Rabbi Shmuel, during the 40 years of the Midbar, they ate only korbanos. According to Rabbi Akiva, during the 40 years of the Midbar, they can eat anything. You don't have to do shchita at all. So tomorrow, boy, Rabbi Yirmiyah asked a question. Now listen, go up to Rabbi Akiva. You're talking about the following. Listen to the following thing. According to Rabbi Akiva, you're allowed to take an animal during the 40 years of the Midbar. You don't have to do shechita. What are you going to do? You just kill it. You take a gun, you shoot the animal on the head, and you're allowed to go and eat it during the 40 years of the Midbar. Now, what happens, says the Gemara, you came your last year of the Midbar, you took an animal, you killed the animal. Then you go into Eretz Yisrael. You have a piece of the meat. You have still a delicious piece of steak. Can I eat it in Eretz Yisrael? It was not shechted. Could I eat it or not? Says the Gemara, when is that? We talk about the 7 years. The first 7 years they went into Israel. What do they do during the 7 years? They conquered the land. Oh, you're allowed to eat davar tameh, meaning you're allowed to eat shreif meat in Eretz Yisrael the first 7 years. Tichtiv ubatim mileim kol tuv. Houses full of good. You can eat chunks of pig meat. So here comes huge chiddush over here. Says something nifla. When they're going and conquering Eretz Yisrael, you learn from the pasuk. They go into Eretz Yisrael and they start conquering the land and killing the nations. They open the fridge of the Kanaani that lives in Eretz Yisrael, and they find there a nice, good piece of pig. You can eat it. Can I eat it? So something more. We'll get back to that in a moment. We talk about after, meaning, so answer if they want we're talking about that you have the meat, but the meat is there only after 7 years. They froze it in some good freezer those days. You had a meat from the midbar, and the shaila is after the first 7 years, can you eat or not? If you buy say moloi lo b'sheva shekibshu ki ishtarlu shalosh lavdikachovim didu lo ishtari. No. They can't just eat treif. Only treif that they found in the houses of the goyim. But a regular treif they can't eat. So now I'm asking you now, if I have a meat coming from the middle, can I eat it? Says the word take one. We don't know. Right? Okay. Now, comes over here. Tremendous chiddush. Tremendous Indian. We're learning here that if they were conquering Eretz Yisrael, they found a piece of meat, they could eat it. So first of all, we have over here a big machlokes, Rambam and the Ramban. And it's very gishmak because it goes l'shitos. We'll see in a moment. The Rambam learns that this is not nugea only to kibush Eretz Yisrael. As any time that a nation, they're going to war, you're allowed to eat treif. Says the Rambam, why? Because when you're in a war, you could get very, very hungry. You can become a sakana. It's dangerous. So the Torah says when you go to war, you can eat meat, any meat you find. You don't have to start shechting. Yeah, people are going to die. So the Rishonim, one of the questions the Rishonim have, and the Ramban attacks the Rambam very much. One of the Rishonim says, I don't understand. If they have sakanas nefashos, of course, any one of us, if we're in a time of sakana, you can eat the meat. So the Nesekim when the Rambam explained, the Rambam doesn't mean it's cause the flesh mamish. I mean, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, as a rule, when you go to war, we're taking away the surim of treif meat, because you could come to sakana. It's a special heter, even when you're not in sakana, you can do it. So the Rambam learns every war you can eat treif. The Ramban says, no. Only in Eretz Yisrael, the first 7 years, you're conquering Eretz Yisrael. That's the only time you can do it. Now, it's very gishmak the Rambam l'shtosei, because the Maharal speaks about it in Eretz Yisrael. What goes on? It says like this. Shaila is, when you're getting mitzvahs and Torah, do we have a reason why we have the mitzvahs? So the Rambam in the Moreh Nevuchim gives us some reasons for the mitzvahs. So the Gabe eating treif meat, meaning meat that was not kosher, the Rambam says we know that the treif meat is not healthy. Chazir is a very dirty animal. It's not healthy. That's what the Torah says not to eat it. So the Maharal, the Ramban already attacks the Rambam in different places, but the Maharal, specifically on this, disagrees with the Rambam. And some say the Rambam didn't really mean it. He wrote the Mori Nevuchim, he wrote it for, it's a safer for the confused. So he wanted to give some things everybody can, even people that are far away from Yiddishkeit can connect it. But that's not the real reason. But the Maharal says to say that reason, it's not true. Because if so, how do you explain our Gemara? You're going there, it's true, how do you trif? But Chazir is not healthy. Says Maharal, Elama, what do you see from here? You see that this has nothing to do with the mitzvahs. We're not doing the mitzvahs for reasons. We're doing the mitzvahs because Akash Baruch Hu told us to do the reasons. And sometimes Akash Baruch Hu had the reason to give it to us, and sometimes not. So we made it. By us over here, we have, when we're going to Eretz Yisrael, we have a bottom lane called to. You have to go and get everything there. So that's why you eat it. Say in a moment a reason in just 1 second. But, so comes out the Rambam Lishtar is very gishmak. Because the Rambam holds every word applies. It's a different sakana. You're saying it's not healthy. Yeah. But when you're in war, I can't start there being too picky. So I'm giving you to eat it. So Rambam, but according to the Ramban and the Maharal, it's a specific thing in Eretz Yisrael. When you conquer Eretz Yisrael, why should that be different? So you see, Rambam L'Shitosa works. It's really a din kloli in all mitzvahs, and it's din kloli always. And the Ramban and the Maharal go in the other direction. It's a special thing in Eretz Yisrael. Why should it be a special thing in Eretz Yisrael? So it's brought down the Talmud of the Rashba. I forgot it. It's the Shem Tov. Talmud of the Rashba says it. It sounds like a Hasidic Torah. But he says the following thing. There's a Medrash that tells us that why is a Chazir called a Chazir? Because it's Osid Lachzor. It will be kosher. Which means, in this world, we have different Isurim. But we come to Lo'ilam Haba, all these Isurim will come mutter. Everything will turn around to become mutter. That's what it says. Shalah is if it's true or not, there's a whole discussion. Comes the Talmud of Rashba says, when you're conquering Eretz Yisrael, it's like being in Olam Haba. Why is that so? You need an Esber, but we find that in other things too. I'll give you one example. It's brought down. We're running out of time just to mention it. That doing the Bnei Yissaschar tells us that during the 3 weeks we're very makbid to read the parshas, 4 parshas, Pinchas, Matas Maseh, and Dvarim. Even in years that doesn't really work, we're going to do whatever we can to read these 4 parshas. Why? Because these 4 parshas refer to conquering Eretz Yisrael. So we're talking about the 3 weeks, the time of Bnei Mitzrayim, we're talking about conquering Eretz Yisrael. Why conquering Eretz Yisrael? Just talk about Eretz Yisrael. There's other parshas. Being in Eretz Yisrael, after conquering is our opening. We know Eretz Yisrael is the Pesach L'Olam Haba. So we conquering Eretz Yisrael, you have your door to Olam Haba. That's conquering Eretz Yisrael. Now, after you conquer it, we're not yet in Olam Haba. Eretz Yisrael, but the conquering gives us the door. That's like somehow the opening to Eretz Yisrael. That's what seems to be the something Shem Tov, his name, the Talmud of the Rashba, and he says, we're going here with that. That's the reason. There's a reason why we conquered. So the special, the Gaval Degalamori. Okay, now says the Gemara. Okay, Omarab. So that was this whole Esber was first explanation. Explanation was, what is the pshat that we are telling you that Lo'ilam Sheikhatim you always shecht? Why is that so? That's what it is. Lo'ilam Sheikhatim is because you could do it even in the time they're in Golos. To tell you, according to Rabbi Shmuel, that you could shecht, you're allowed to shecht, and according to Rabbi Kiva, to tell you that you need to shecht. Okay, very good. According to you, explain the Mishnah. The Mishnah says you have to shecht everything, including a bird. That's what we started off. To tell you, you always shecht. Bakol shechetim, my mishani says you can shecht with everything. What are you talking about? Bein bitsur, tur means a rock. Bein bischuchi is glass. Bein mikumi shikoni reed. We're talking about similar to the other ones. We're not talking about Shabs here. We're talking about yeah, it could be. Yeah. So he says what the shchutim, meaning the first part of the Mishnah says you shecht everything. We're talking about what? Animals, birds, everything. You shecht always. But kosher talks about the vessel, about the kli. So we're not talking about the same topic. Says the Gemara, has to be the similar idea. That's what he's saying. You talk about me, the things you shecht. We talk about the item, the shechts, the kli, or the animal. Hello, Marova, called Shechidim Chado. We're not talking about the animal. We're talking about the action that brings shechita. So Shechidim means Chad lasui kusi, Chad lasui somum. Remember the first mission of the Masechtes as a called Shechidim. So yeah, kusi kishecht, somum kishecht. Number one. Le'oilam Shechidim, not talking about the animal. I mean that you could do it forever. But bein bayoim bein balayla, could do it day and night. Bein berosh hagag berosh shri, could even on the roof on the gag. Even though he says that when you do shechita, you should do kisui adam. But you could do it on the roof in the ship where you don't have kisui adam. Kol shechidim bein bitzur bein b'schuchis bein kushkan. In other words, this he explains the mission differently. We're not talking about the timing of shechita. We're talking about we're not talking about the you do have to do shechita of an animal always. You're talking about specifically the how do you shecht? You shecht with the person can shecht. You go do the shechita all the time, and you can use all the kelim. Okay, now this he explains the Mishnah a little different. Let's go on. So Gemara chutzi magal kotzer v'amegiro. That you have different instruments that you should not use. Avu d'shmuel pogam v'shodar pogam v'shodar. So now we're getting a little more technical here. The knives, they have holes in it, and they're not straight, they're not smooth. They have a problem. So what did Abu Shmuel? Abu Shmuel sent there to show some knives with different indentations in the knife to see if this is good enough to do shechita or not. So Pogam b'shodar, he made a hole and sent it to Eretz Pogam b'shodar. Shochulei kemigiro shaninu. We're talking about the migiro, what we say is a problem when it looks like a saw that has the way Rashi is a big mechlikas in the share to understand it. The what? The jagging in that you have, it's considered to be that it's an angle on both sides. So let me angle on both sides. You look at the according to Rashi. Rashi learns talk about specifically about the sharp part. That sharp part goes up here and goes up here, goes on both sides. So that, yeah. In other words, it goes. So when you have an indentation to both sides, not one is a little higher, one is less. So then you're saying that it's a problem on the shechita. Let's see the one we're going to speak about.
Wait a minute. Utensils.
Yeah, it has to be smooth. It has to be smooth. Let's see. Sakin sheyesh bo gimus harbe. Yeah. So the Yechezkel basically was a sakin sheyesh bo gimus harbe. You have many holes in it. Tidoin kemigiru. Then it's a problem with giru, which is place of the shechita. Feshein bo gimu achas. You have only one indentation into the knife. Oigeres psula mesuchseches kshev. So it says Oigeres is a puzzle. So it says kshev. Echidam Oigeres. What is Oigeres? Echidam mesuchseches. What does it mean that this one is what is? Oigeres mishtei ruchus. Mesuchseches meruach achas. Oigeres means that you have a sharpness in both sides. Mesuchseches means you have sharpness only on one side. I want to show you here the picture that they have in the Masifta is very clear. I hope you guys can see it. You see that the Oigeres is it's going in and out an angle. Suchseka means it's a sharp angle on one side, but then it flat it out. Here, show it. Look at the picture. The first picture. The one on the right. You see? The other one, it's like it goes in sharp, but then it flatten out on the other side. Right? So okay. So he says like this. He says, so he says, let's go on. So both sides have a sharp angle. Only one side has a sharp angle. Why two sides is a problem? Meaning when it hits the first indentation, it already softens it. The second one makes a hole and ruins the animal, makes a hole in the sieve. The sharpness of the knife already makes it soft. More shabaza, and the one indentation makes it tear out. So the one that calling my ratio the sakina, meaning the indentation is in the top of the knife, and you're not going to use it. In other words, you're right. The knife goes at a little angle, then the end it becomes sharp. You have to make sure you do the shita not to touch the animal with a sharpness, according to Rashi. So okay, but when you're going back and forth, so I'm going to go one side is going to make it soften, and then when I go back, it's going to tear it up. You do only one side, don't do both sides. Okay. So in other words, I'm not going back and forth. I'm going only one side. I'm making sure not to hit the sharpness according to that's a Rashi lens. We're showing you have several different sheets over here to explain the Gemara. Okay. You have 3 midos. Oigeres lo yishot. So we said oigeres means that you have sharpness that goes. It's two. The indentation is a sharp angle on both sides. Which means there's a sharp angle on one side. Don't do it because you may hit with the sharpness. What's Oil Bisakin? This is the next picture over here. Is that you make sure there's no sharpness. Really, instead of being a straight, there was some holes. So what he did is he smoothed it out, and now it's like almost like a circle. So I mean, there's no angle, but it's not straight. It's going in and out. That's no problem at all. You said meaning you have 2 angles. You said it is. He said it's kosher. So I said there's one side and the other side. So back and forth, you hit the angle. One side is not, you're not doing it. What about it looks like sasso? What does it mean? In other words, it's not smooth, but it also doesn't have an angle, Rashi says. Right? Similar to what we said before, going oily v'yoyot. Give me from that meat and I'll eat. In other words, it's kosher. Now going on and saying, we have to check the knife. Every time you do a shchit, you have to check your knife. How do we know that? It says a pasuk in Shmuel. You shchet with this and you'll eat. What with this? I checked it. Pshita. What? Who? Okay. It's Shoal over here. Yeah. Pshita. If he has a hole, it becomes treifel. So by bdiko, of course it is bdiko. What's a chiddush? It's just technically. Something more lechacham kamrin. You have to show it to the chacham. Meaning, don't just rely on yourself to show the rabbi. Something more let me pick for the chacham. The only time to show to a chacham is only because of kavod the chacham. You only do it for the honor of the chacham, not for.
What was the pshita? The pshita was that because
you have to check it.
The knife might be good, might not be good.
You have to check it.
Have to check it
Yeah, because I'm saying a knife can make the animal treifel. So of course you have to check it.
If we work on the previous one, why would we think it's now not good for the next one?
No, I mean you never know. So you want to make sure that you're not making an psul. You say chazaka. That's a chazaka. If you check, no. So you know what?
We don't need a
maybe you're right. The question was the first time. But chazaka we can argue because we have machlekes before. So we have to show it to the chacham. Don't rely on yourself. So the Gemara, we don't really have to show the chacham. Chacham is only to give honor to the chacham. We don't really mitzad adin to do it. It's not the pasuk. So the Gemara, midirabon of a cross machta be'almo. You're right. Midirabon, you have to check it. Cross machta be'almo, and on a pasuk for it, don't pasuk. You want to make sure there's no indentation in the knife. So what do you do? How do you check? So they checked it in the sun. How do you check in the sun? Rashi brings 2 explanations. The second explanation is that you put the sun next to you put the knife in front of the sun and you look at the shade. And you see if there's any hole. Right? Because when the sun shines on the knife and you have shade in the bottom, if there's any hole, you'll see it's that straight line of a shade. Of a shadow, right? So the shadow of the thing. What do you mean? You let a drop of Rashi says the second explanation, let a drop of water go down the sharp of the knife. If there's a hole, the water will get stuck. He put his tongue. He put the knife through his tongue and he checked if there's any hole in it. He takes a small hair and he goes through the knife to see if it gets stuck. B'sura amre bisra achlo bisra liftiko. What is it coming to cut? Meat. So you should check it with meat, which means either with your tongue or with your finger. Now it's something else. Omar papa tzricho bidiko abisra ve'atorf. You have to check with the meat, with your finger or tongue, and with your nail.
Safer than done.
Omar Rav Avashi, Omar la Rav Salam, Brei Dav Shashem, Mishmach, Ta'amud la Mishmei Derovo. Tzricho b'dika. We say you said in the name from we heard from you. Tzricho b'dika abisra with the flesh, that torfa with the nail, that plus the ruchos, which means you have to check all three sides, meaning not only the sharpness, also the right and the left, to make sure there's no holes over there. I agree. I mean, but I did. He said, according to your name, you have to do these three checkups. So I agree. The first two, you have to check with your finger, to check with a nail. That plus the ruchos, and you have to check all three sides. We'll say them one why. I did say all three things. I didn't say the name of Rav. We're sitting in front of Ashi. Also, Sakina Kame, the Ashi leave the code. Brought a knife from Ashi to check it. Only the Rav Bitko. Check it out. Vodka to free check with his nail. That Biso with his flesh, with his finger. That close on three sides. Only Yishar, very good you're doing. You don't have to do three sides. What are the three sides telling you? Because you want to check the other sides to check not only the sharpness. Then we saw earlier that when you have a knife that was heated up, that was put into fire, that was shechted, why we saw that before, so it was a hard gemara. You say the sharpness comes before the heat, and therefore it's not burning the sim and it's cutting the sim. But we asked in the sugya, what about the sides? We said no problem, because the base of shchita is open, meaning when you shecht it, the shecht right away opens up. So the sides of the knife don't touch the sides of the animal, because the sharpness cuts the animal in the edge, and the two sides are not touching the animal, because right away when you shecht, the flesh of the animal opens up. So you're not touching the sides. So the heat doesn't touch the sides, doesn't make it treifel. Says the Gemara, Hachinami, so here, Beis Shchita is open. Meaning, what is the Gemara saying? Says the Gemara, I don't care about the sides. Well, what's around the sides? Maybe there's a begima, maybe there's some indentation in the sides which will ruin the Beis Shchita will ruin will make it treifel. No, it won't. Because the minute I'm cutting the animal, so what happens to the Beis Shchita? It opens up. So it won't touch the sides of the knife. So why you have to check three sides? The Gemara says that he holds it out like that. So you should do it. You should do the three sides. Because even though maybe you can rely on it, why rely on it lechatchila? You should try and do it, and that's what you do. We'll stop over here, boys. Continue from here, Beis Hashem tomorrow. Yishach koyach godol ad lamoit.